Welcome to 10's Dynamic Bodyweight Pilates workout. This is the second session plan within our series. This workout has been constructed to include exercises that contain mobility, joint stability, and strength-based movements. Essentially, all the types of exercises you'll find within our classes at 10. At 10, we deliver exercises that have purpose to your everyday life. This enables us to deliver things that are going to have the biggest impact and remove other potential exercises that are really not suitable. For this reason, we have broken this workout down into phases so that you're aware of why you're doing a particular exercise and, of course, how big a benefit it's going to give you. You're also safe in the knowledge that this is a balanced workout and simply tried and trusted by our trainers at 10. Within this session, you can simply choose the level of intensity by increasing the duration of the entire session. The purpose of this video is to enable you to become familiar with the exercises and their order. You could also increase or reduce the volume of rest between each exercise or at the end of a particular sequence. Alternatively, you could just simply opt for the progression given within particular exercises. Enjoy our workout and please pass it to others that you may feel will benefit from this session. Our first stretch, which is mobility based, is the standing QL stretch. What Emily's trying to do here is lengthen out the side of the body. So in this case, she's taken corresponding arm to leg away from each other. And she's using the angle of her body. You can see how she's lifted her right arm to the ceiling and right leg slightly behind her to create length between the bottom rib and the top of the hip of that corresponding side. Within the following stretch, we're looking at a roll down, which is really trying to articulate downwards towards the floor and create a deeper flexion within the back. Once arriving on the floor, Emily has then taken herself into an extended arm plank position, of which keeping glutes tight, abdominal muscles and core muscles drawn in, shoulders down, and chin tucked in. Emily's now dropped to her knees, which is an alternative to make things a little easier. Emily's now taken herself into a Cobra position, which now creates a little more extension through the spine. She's being very careful not to overextend her cervical spine region, so it's the upper spine around her neck. And when she breathes out during this phase, she is drawing her belly button towards the spine and repeating breathing out upon the lifting phase. Within this next exercise, we are doing the reverse swan. Now, this exercise is very much focused again on similar areas as the Cobra previously. This time, what we're looking to do is strengthen between the shoulder blades. We're also looking to keep good stability within that cervical upper region of the spine, around the neck region. This particular angle focuses really on the movement of the shoulder blades, and you can kind of see the contour between Emily's shoulder blades as she retracts. After this short rest, we find ourselves in a side plank position. Now, Emily's taken it another stage further and gone into the full side plank. However, if you feel as though that's a little too much for you, by lowering a knee or both knees. That will alternatively make things just a little bit easier. Most people will have to do that, so beware that this is actually quite a difficult exercise. Be sure to keep the bottom shoulder away from the neck. This is another key watch point. Within this glute bridge, Emily has first imprinted her spine, so therefore she has pressed her lower spine down into the mat before she is lifted off. Within this progression, she has essentially lifted a hand off, which means that now she has less support to push from. So she has no base of support. Within progression 2, she's raised the other hand. Simply done the same thing, but again removed another base of support. So therefore there is way more stability needed. Now in progression 3, she's lifted a single leg. Lifting that leg into tabletop means that the workload is now generated, in this case, the left glute. As we look at Emily from a side view, we can see that she's doing very, very well to keep a nice long line from her sternum through to belly button. Shoulders are nice and broad also. So within the rollback position, what Emily's first doing is just tipping her waistband back towards her tummy. She's keeping her ribcage drawn in as she gently leans back. Within this progression, she's taken one foot up into tabletop. And within this next progression, she's taken the other leg into tabletop. Within the second set of side plank, you can see how from a stable position, Emily's lifted her hand up towards the ceiling, and also reiterating how her shoulder, bottom shoulder that is drawn away from her neck. She's being sure to keep a nice line right the way throughout the body. Imagine an invisible line being drawn through the sternum to belly button. The hand goes back down onto the floor, and we can lower ourselves down. Now, within this second set of glute bridge, we're primarily going to focus on this time the progressions being on the right leg. But you can see firstly that Emily has just done a couple of repetitions just to work her way back into the exercise. She's then taken a single arm up, and again, that reduces the stability that she's getting from the floor. Now, within this progression, she's lifted her left arm up, which again removes the stability. Notice how the pelvis rolls up. Now, within this progression, Emily's showing you the work generated through the left leg. However, within this second set, we're focused with right leg generating the movement. So her right foot would be dropped towards the floor, onto the floor, and her left leg would be in that tabletop position. She's dropped her hands down to do that particular part of the exercise. So after a quick rest, we're now taking part in our functional phase. This is the first of our functional phase, whereas Emily's going to take herself straight into that scooter. However, you can do a few bilateral squats if you wish. Notice how this scooter is very similar to the skater that we used within session 1. However, this time Emily is taking her foot back opposed to taking it to the side. After a quick break, we're now going into our single leg deadlift with reach. Alternatively, if you find it very difficult to balance within this exercise, you can just very similar to the last exercise, just gently slide the back foot along the floor. So it kind of acts as a kickstand, and that will enable you to stay a little bit more upright, plus get your balance. This gives us the opportunity to look at the two exercise combination again. So looking at the scooter to begin with, notice how Emily's in a very shallow squat position. And if you're able to, try to have a very small amount of contact with the moving leg. The working leg is the more stable of the two. Now, based upon what we saw Emily do within the last set, the two exercises would be done with the right leg being the harder of the working legs. And as you can see, it's almost like a very tightly kept tipping motion or hinging motion that Emily is keeping right now. So now we're in the postural phase of the workout where we're specifically focusing on the upper back region. So within this extended arm plank, focus on how Emily is parting her shoulder blades, almost trying to get her shoulder blades to wrap around the sides of the body. This will give us far more shoulder stability within this particular exercise. We're simply then taking ourselves from that prone position into now a full prone position, whereas Emily is going into an exercise called swimming, where she's lifting the opposite leg to arm. Focus on how her head moves in time and in line with the arm that's being lifted. Within this progression, she's engaged. Then she's remained lifted from the floor, so her chest to sternum in particular has been raised from the floor. She's keeping her deep neck flexors engaged by keeping a double chin and alternating the arm leg position. The next exercise is a shell stretch, and I use the term exercise loosely. This is a relaxation method that enables Emily to stretch the lower contours of her back, so the lower back to middle back gets a stretch, and also those much needed muscle stretches underneath each arm. Now, after a brief rest, we're now following through with the second round of activational based exercises, starting with the side plank. Emily is on the correct side, so she's now working the right side. So we're starting on the right side again. Focus on that alignment, and again, don't be afraid to drop the knees down to reduce the workload running through the side of the body. By this stage, it could be quite difficult to do the full workout. So now moving into the third of the 4 sets of glute bridge that we're doing. Again, it gives us the opportunity to run through what Emily's doing here. Going into single arm progression. And focus on the rolling of the hips, on the lifting or just before the lifting of the hips. Both feet firm on the ground. Progression 2 is lifting the other arm to reduce the contact with the floor, thus reducing the stability that Emily has. Nice long neck as well there. Now the third progression is to go up into tabletop. Now we are on the correct leg, so if you are following this video succinctly, you are on the correct leg. Working the left leg right now. The left leg and left foot is in contact with the floor, so you are generating the movement from that left gluteal and hamstring region. Emily's now going to roll up and then bring herself in the roll back position. Both feet are currently on the floor, whereas the first progression is now lifting a single leg. She's about to lift the other leg to go into progression number 2, and this can be done just by a static hold if you're advanced. So this is the final side plank that we're going to do. Again, we can focus this time on the underside of Emily's body, looking at the left side. Notice how she's keeping the same shape throughout, even though her body wants to buckle between the bottom rib and the hips. She's engaging the bottom shoulder down. The left shoulder is coming away from her neck. She's taking her top hand down and lowering her hips. Within this final set of glute bridge, we're now going to focus on doing this exercise with the right foot on the floor, so we have as equal amount of work going through the left leg as the right leg. We're running through these progressions as we have done before. Emily's first progression is to raise a single arm, so therefore she has less contact with the floor. She's now lifted the other arm again in an attempt to remove the stability of which she has. Now she's going to go into tabletop. Now remember, if you're following this video, you would need to have this time the right foot in contact with the floor. Therefore, the workload is going through the right leg opposed to the left leg, as Emily is showing you right now. Look at how she's still rolling from the pelvis, even though we've gone to a single leg. The foot comes down, and that finishes that particular exercise. So we're now going into the second phase of our functional exercise. And you would be correct in working the left leg first within this phase, as we are simply repeating what happened within the first phase. Emily is currently doing the scooter. She's going to turn that into a single leg deadlift with touchdown. Based upon what I suggested earlier on, you can slide, in this case, what would be the right foot along the floor to act as a kickstand to provide a little bit more stability, therefore maintaining your balance a little better. Now we're going straight onto the other side. Feel free to possibly do maybe a few bilateral squats just to sort of break up the two sides and get you prepared for this scooter. Nice long spine. Look how the crown of their head follows the rest of the line of the spine. And then Emily takes herself into the second set of single leg deadlift with touchdown. But this time, this exercise and the previous exercise, it would be the right foot that remains grounded. And look at the hinging motion as Emily goes through this repetition. Her head and her heel are almost in alignment there. Now we're into the post-workout mobility section. A majority of these stretches are very slow, very controlled, and some of which are static. So that means there is a slow developmental movement into a hold. Here, Emily's just rotating her toes upwards towards the ceiling to create a stretch on the inside of that extended leg. After that stretch, she's simply brought the extended leg knee in, so she's now a little more symmetrical, widened her knees, and taken herself into what looks like a shell stretch / adductor stretch. That's with bent knees. And now she's going to stretch, this time the left leg, and again focus on the turning up of the toes. And you'll notice that when doing this, it will enhance the stretch as you turn the toes towards the ceiling.